Growing a business is kind of tricky right now. Supply chains are squeezed, tariffs and trade policies are dynamic, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. You need clarity to come out on top. Without it, you risk falling behind. If only you could hop in the DeLorean and see the future, right? Thankfully, there's NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite has real-time forecasting to help you move ahead with confidence. This is your AI-powered business management suite and the #1 cloud ERP. Trusted by over 42,000 businesses, NetSuite brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. And with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook. Here is a stat that will blow your mind. There are over 4 million podcasts out there, but only 10% have more than 10 episodes. That means if you can just get past 10 episodes, you're already in the top 10% of all podcasters. And if you hit 100 episodes, you're in the top 4.8%. But here's what's really exciting. We're living through what I call right now the TikTokification of podcasting. For the first time ever, your very first piece of podcast content could be seen by 1 million people. The rules have completely changed. It wasn't always like that, right? With just audio only, the chances of getting your first episode out there was very slim. You had to build over time. And of course, many podcasts have done very well over time. I started this show back in 2010, and that was literally 15 years ago. I can do math in my head. But now the rules have completely changed, and podcasters have a huge advantage. The ones who understand what's working right now, they're seeing explosive growth, while others are still stuck in 2010 strategies with the grind. And you're still going to have to grind a little bit, but we can grind a little bit faster on things. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what's working in podcasting in 2025, from the content strategies that are driving massive growth to the technical approaches that are getting podcasts discovered. If you have a podcast or you're thinking about starting one, everything is about to change for you. But let's start with the elephant in the room. With 4 million podcasts out there, I mean, that's a lot of podcasts. Is it still even worth starting a new show? Well, here's the thing. High failure rates, we already talked about this, only 10% get above 10 episodes, which is kind of insane. High failure rates mean less competition. While listenership continues to grow year over year, hundreds of millions of listeners are out there looking for new shows to tickle their fancy on their drive, on their walk, while working out. Consistency is really what will give you a huge advantage. And celebrities, of course, are all launching new shows. Now, you might be like, oh, well, how can I compete with Jax and Kristen Bell? Well, that means people are going to come find their podcast who might not be regular listeners of podcasts, get the Apple Podcast app and get in there, not just download their podcast or another celebrity's podcast, but perhaps even find yours. Maybe they have a problem and they're looking for the solution that you have to offer. So is it even worth starting or having a podcast in 2025? Absolutely. So there's still great opportunity, but what fundamentally is different now about growing a podcast versus like a few years ago? Well, there is now a shift from slow grow podcasting to fast grow podcasting. There are new platforms that have come about that showcase snippets and little parts of things that can help you grow even faster. And there's a couple things I want to talk about this, right? Yes, there's the algorithm and understanding how TikTok works, of course, then repurposing these things into YouTube Shorts, repurposing them into Reels on Instagram, and I'm even experimenting right now with my existing Shorts channel for Pokemon, repurposing the same exact content on Facebook. Yes, I said the F word, Facebook. We're going back to Facebook. I had a couple friends tell me that Facebook has been exploding for them for short form content. And guess what? I'm also trying out Snapchat. Snapchat is now redesigned itself to look similar to TikTok's with their Spotlight feature. And they still have stories, and yes, it's mainly used for private messaging between people, but there are public-facing stories and spotlights out there that are getting hundreds of thousands of views. And I've posted a few videos on there, and one of them does have 300,000 views at this point. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, Pat, this is short-form stuff you're talking about. How does that help my long-form stuff? Well, there's a couple things to this, right? Of course, people will discover your short-form stuff because you're using those algorithms to your advantage. You're getting in front of more people who are doom scrolling at night. Couple things happen. Number one, some of them may be so intrigued about the little snippets that you share, and you can share more than like one a day. You can share a bunch and try to get in front of people in different kinds of ways. Some videos do well, some videos go nowhere. There is a quantity game on these platforms, and there's a lot of tools like Opus Clip, or if you record in something like Riverside, you can actually take snippets from your podcast interview and just put them right into social media from there, which is really neat. People may be intrigued to go and listen to the full episode of the show based on the little snippet that they heard. Sure. But more likely and obvious to happen is the fact that you're able to get in front of people with at least a part of your podcast that wouldn't have found you otherwise. It is a way to get the long-form content in front of people in a format that they are already consuming things, which is short form. So whether or not they come and listen to your long-form show, it is the creation of the long-form show that helps you build an audience through the short-form content that you can create from it. So does this mean video should be a part of the process now? In most cases, yes. Now, there are still audio podcasts that are doing extremely well. Obviously, this one you're listening to right now, and it still has hundreds of thousands of listeners every single month. But if you're going for growth from scratch, you should think about taking advantage of video. Now, you don't have to even publish the long-form videos, whether they're solo episodes or interview episodes with a guest. Maybe you use the long-form video recording to simply find little snippets to take from, and you leave the full episode as an audio only. That works too. However, there are people, again, who will benefit from putting their podcast up with a good title and thumbnail on YouTube and getting more viewers that way. So this is the big difference. This was not how we were found before. How we were found before as podcasters were either getting rankings. I mean, this is like what it was like in 2010. You know, you launch your show, you launch it in a way that is more event-like, which you should still do if you're just starting out. More noise around it, more hype, more excitement, which means more downloads, more subscribes, more reviews and likes, and word of mouth happening all within a short period of time. And that helps you gain rankings. And that is still the case. However, there's a lot more podcasts there. And in 2010, a launch of a podcast would mean you were also on the new and noteworthy list, which meant you got a little bit of extra love from Apple, or back then it was called iTunes, and you could get some more viewers and listeners that way. But now, word of mouth is still important. Yes, you should be creating content that's worth talking about. That's obvious. However, it is these algorithms on these short-form platforms that can take these obviously shareable moments, package them, and put them in front of people. So that's the fundamental difference. So yes, it is more work. I'm not going to deny that. However, again, there are tools that can help you. Cast Magic is another one. I love the idea of Riverside again. I've been actually falling in love with Riverside. I've been a longtime Squadcast user, but Squadcast was bought out, and there are other tools that are just kind of seemingly taking the reins of the interviewing space for podcasters. And Riverside, we use Riverside now, and it's absolutely amazing. So shout out to the Riverside team. smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside. If you want to check them out, that's our affiliate link. So yes, this is content multiplication, right? Starting with one, which is ideally the long form video, whether it's recorded on something like Riverside or you're just talking to the camera. And it's going to be cringe in the beginning, right? You got to be cringe before they binge, but this is what's going to differentiate people who grow slowly and those who grow more quickly. It is finding the little snippets within those episodes that are worth sharing and then packaging them and then putting them on to social. Now, here's the thing. One thing that has helped me with this is when you are recording these episodes, especially if it's an interview, because it's a lot harder to go back into an interview and kind of, especially if you waited a couple days to go and remember exactly what was spoken about and what the hot moments were. A lot of times when I'm recording podcasts, I go into it and I sometimes forget this, but if I do remember, it's very useful. And I've tried to create little Post-it notes in front of me before recording podcasts, so I remember to do this. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about during the episode. If there's something insane that was said, or an answer you get back that was kind of mind-blowing, that piques your curiosity as the interviewer, great, mark that timestamp in the audio so that you can go back to it later, or at least mark that part of the conversation, or capture a few words that were said so you can go back to the transcript and find it. Maybe you're using a tool like Descript, which automatically transcribes your stuff, and you can go back to that moment, pull that moment out, and then amplify it on social media, right, with the short-form content. So yes, it is more work, but you know what? Sometimes it's going to require some work to get those things out there that do deserve to get out there. Unfortunately, this is the game we're playing today. Now, a lot of people are not doing that. So those who do find a procedure to do this, and again, you could take 100 snippets from one episode. If this were easy, what would it look like? That's the question. Maybe you pick one or two. One thing that also helps me when I'm conducting an interview and when I do solo episodes is to either script something that you know is going to be a hot thing that you can include in a little snippet, right? So you're sort of planning ahead for these little moments. Or if you're in an interview, queue up a question somewhere midway through after the guest has gotten comfortable. And again, don't put them on the spot. Don't trap them. I don't believe in that. That's not fair. You can warn them or let them know ahead of time that you're going to ask them about something if there is indeed something a little bit more controversial that you want to bring up. Sure, that's fine, and that's okay, I think, because then you can get them to say, no, I don't want to talk about that, and then you don't have to talk about that. But if you can queue up a question or something interesting and have it in the hopper for a certain moment in time during your conversation, you bring it out, you know that's there, and then you know you can go back to it later and pull it out. So another thing that I want to talk about, speaking of technology and a lot of the stuff that we're kind of already rolling on, is what role is AI playing in the podcast growth space right now? Well, there's a few things. Adobe has come out with a tool recently which magically improves your audio. Let me see if I can find the exact name for this. Adobe Podcast Enhancer, I think it's called. Enhanced Speech from Adobe. Enhanced Speech. It's a free AI filter and, man, AI audio enhancement tool. It's awesome. I mean, you can take a really bad audio. Maybe you've recorded an episode and you forgot to turn on your regular mic and you're using your MacBook mic instead, or the sound from your phone, and it's just not great. Well, you can pump it through the Adobe Podcast AI audio recording and editing tool, and boom. I mean, you're going to have it sound pro, just like what you're hearing right now, which is really, really cool. I love that. So you can improve audio quality. That's a great thing that AI is doing. You can create really nice show notes. You can take your transcript after your podcast, put it in through a chat bot or a chat GPT or a Claude, or, we use Poppy at SPI. Huge shout out to the guys at Poppy. I mean, they've made this tool so amazing. I use it almost every day. You could check it out. Getpoppy.ai or smartpassiveincome.com/Poppy, I should say, so that you can see what the code is for the 25% discount. Again, smartpassiveincome.com/Poppy, Poppy. Probably the most taken recommendation from us at SPI in a long time. We're seeing a lot of additional affiliate income come in, thank you, by the way, for the recommendation of Poppy, and some thank you notes from people who said it's changed their lives in the creation space. And so for podcasters, definitely check out Poppy. You can use it like I do for taking these transcripts from podcasts and creating smart show notes from them. You can train it, of course. You can create different boards. You can have a lot of different structures of things that just are easy to pull out for you inside of, again, Poppy, using AI to find those moments, right? If you're training AI on who your audience is, you can use tools like this to read through a transcript and then best determine what parts of it you should pull out for social media, which is really cool. You can have it do a lot of things like that. So AI is playing a role for sure. It's playing a role in helping with what interview questions should be asked. It is helping with even solo shows. And I'm just going to tell you something right now. I'm going to tell you a little secret that's going on right now. I'm using AI right now. Now, no, this is my voice for real. I don't need the audio enhancer tool from Adobe because I'm using the top equipment that I could get my hands on. But what am I using it for? I'm using it to help guide where this podcast episode goes. And here is the prompt that I gave Poppy before I recorded this episode. I said, please start with an intriguing opener. I already gave it information about what I wanted to talk about, right? The title of the podcast episode, what's working in podcasting right now. I fed it a lot of information that I shared with it myself. I found information from other people on YouTube and other people's resources, put them into Poppy here as well. And I said, I want to create an episode to help people understand what is working today with podcasting. Please start with an intriguing opener and then follow it with sections marked off by questions that, for example, is like a person asking me in an interview to get answers that I can then guide my audience through for this show. What's nice about AI too is you don't need to be totally grammatically correct, just like I wasn't there, and it can still understand. So the big idea being I wanted AI or Poppy to act like the interviewer to help guide me on what to share with you. So it created an outline for the show that I'm giving you right now, but it didn't tell me what to say. It asked me questions as if it was the interviewer, in addition to a really nice, intriguing opener. It's asking me questions as if it's the interviewer, which then I can just pretend like I'm in an interview right now, which is really neat. It also found some stats that I started the show with, right? There are over 4 million podcasts, but only 10% have more than 10 episodes, right? A great way to start. But I see literally on my screen right now, it says, let's start with the elephant in the room. With 4 million podcasts out there, is it even worth starting a new show in 2025? The next question, okay, so there's opportunity, but what's fundamentally different about growing a podcast today versus a few years ago? And then my answer. And then it says, okay, Pat, you mentioned short form content. How exactly does that work for podcasters? Isn't that just more work? I just talked about that. Speaking of technology, what role is AI playing in the podcast growth space right now? I just shared that answer. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hiring shouldn't be a hassle or a drain on your budget. Upwork is your one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent, saving you time and keeping costs in check all in one place. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in the way that they staff key projects and initiatives by assessing a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, AI, design, administration support, marketing, and more. And I've personally used them myself and can vouch for them. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, get help drafting a job post, or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier, simpler, and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. Go there now. So here's the next question that it gave me, and we're going to continue this quote-unquote interview, even though it's a solo show. But this is a experiment for me to wrap my head around providing you content that would be helpful for you in a way that prompts me to come up with these answers versus just a script that I'm reading. I'm still sharing this information. It's still coming from me, but I'm being guided through these AI tools as if it is interviewing me. And so I'd recommend trying that. If you are trying for a solo show, which I know can be very hard, that's probably one of the biggest questions I have from our students inside of Power Up Podcasting, inside of our community, which is, how do I structure a solo show? Right? Interview shows make sense. You find a guest and you ask them questions, you get curious, etc. But when it's a solo show and you're talking about a topic, how do you differentiate it from just regurgitated information that you've shared elsewhere and bringing personality into it, like kind of what I'm doing right now? So here's the next prompt or question from our, let's just say from Poppy. Hi, Poppy. Not I, Poppy. Not that kind of Poppy. Anyway, I keep hearing that video is essential now. Is audio-only podcasting dead? No, it is not dead. But like I said, growth happens on YouTube and these other short-form platforms. Growth does not happen in a more accelerated fashion with just audio only. That is, unless you already have a following. That is, unless you are creating content that is so shareable, perhaps controversial, that people have to listen to it because everybody else told them they have to listen to it, right? So again, it's not impossible, but having video, I feel, is very important today because of YouTube, because of these short-form platforms and better discoverability and the ability to grow quickly, the ability for video to both serve video and audio-only audiences. Spotify now supporting video now, thankfully, with chapters now on Spotify, which is really great. And you don't need it to be very, very difficult. Again, if this were easy, what would it look like? You could use Riverside during your interviews and then just use that video, right? You don't need to get crazy with the setups. You don't need a set. Ramit Sethi is somebody who conducts these remote interviews on Zoom from home, and he's got one of the biggest financial-related podcasts on YouTube because he has a really good understanding of how YouTube works, right? So if you are a member of SPI, definitely take advantage of our course, YouTube from Scratch. If you are a podcaster already, there is a video podcasting lesson. There is curriculum inside of our podcasting course that you can use as well. And again, you have access to all those courses if you are a member of SPI. So definitely check that out, smartpassiveincome.com/community, if you want to see how else we might be able to help you on your journey wherever you might feel interested in going. So let's talk about discovery. How are successful podcasts getting found in 2025? So we touched on this a little bit already with the short-form content platforms, taking snippets and those sorts of things, getting in front of people who might not even ever want to listen to a full episode, to still be able to get in front of them with parts of your podcast episode is a huge sort of mindset shift, right? Cross-platform promotion, sharing these clips on social media. However, there's one strategy that has been always working, and it continues to work very, very well, and that is being a guest on another person's podcast, guest podcasting. So when you are a podcaster, or even if you're not a podcaster, guest podcasting is an amazing way to grow your brand, to build some authority, because it does a few things. Number one, you're able to get in front of audiences that you wouldn't have been able to get in front of otherwise, or it would have taken much longer at least. Number two, you're able to show up in your fullest personality, especially if it's on video, but even with audio, you can hear a person's voice. You build a lot more trust faster by hearing a person's voice rather than just reading their words, correct? And thirdly, you are able to benefit from the endorsement that host is giving you for their audience, right? That person has earned the trust with their audience. They already have that trust with their audience. Those are their subscribers, their followers. You coming on they don't just let anybody on the show. So if you get on their show, you're already getting a backing from that host who then helps you fast forward that trust with that new audience, right? So it's not even a cold audience anymore. This host is likely giving you some really nice setup, right? They're telling you about why they had you on the show and what you have to look forward to and all these things that are building, again, trust, which is one of the most important things that you can build. Not necessarily the number of followers, but the trust that you have with them is going to be really, really important. So that is another way to get discovered, is by getting on another person's show. The other cool thing about being a guest on another podcast, and this is something that's really cool, Dustin Reichman, who is a long time ago guest of the podcast, who has recently come back on to talk about guest podcasting. He brought up this really good point that the shows that you become a guest on, like, sure, it's cool if it's in the same industry, but it's even better if it's not, but it's still related or important. So here is an example. If you are a personal finance kind of person, right? You help people with their finances or budgeting or whatever that might be. Let's just say that's your expertise. Great. You might think that you want to get on other financial podcasts, which, yes, makes sense. That's a bullseye. That's your target audience. People who are listening to those shows are obviously people who are curious and are actively wanting to learn more about the things you have to talk about. Great. But guess what? Everybody's thinking the same thing. So you're going to be one guest amongst several other guests who are talking about similar things, and you should, still do that. But you got to show up. You got to bring your A game. You got to bring your personality so you can stand out of the crowd of everybody else who's there who's also a guest on the same show. And of course, the host, who's probably a competitor, if you want to call him that as well. But the best podcasts to be a guest on are the ones that would still benefit from your information, but that's not what their show is about. So, for example, a marriage podcast, newlywed podcast, or a brand new parent podcast, right? Why would that be interesting? Well, because if you are helping people with personal finance, you come on the show that normally doesn't talk about personal finance, and you talk about something that is very relevant to, for example, newlyweds who need to learn how to budget and talk about money openly together, or else that can lead to trouble. Most people who get divorced because of money problems, or at least money is a part of it. You go on a brand new parent podcast. Great. Guess what? Parents have to learn how to now make sure their kids have a financially stable future, or their outcome is good too, because kids cost a lot of money. So how do we budget? How do we manage that? Great. You come on as the financial person for that show, probably the only one. And now you become the leading expert for that particular audience. You can use that to your advantage to build a relationship with that host. And you're going to be more likely to be referenced more because you are the one and only financial person. You might even be called back, right? So this is where becoming that specialist for a certain group of people can work really well. Maybe you are a financial advisor. Great. You go into an entrepreneurial episode of Smart Passive Income and you drop us some knowledge about specifically managing your books and how to do this in a very economical way, but in a smart way. Maybe there's some tax-related tips or tricks that you can offer an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs are listening to this podcast. Great. Now you're not competing against every other guest. You are the specialist who's come on to drop some value and potentially be the recommended person whenever anybody thinks of who they might get financial advice from. You see what I mean? So guest podcasting is really, really great. What about community building within the world of podcasting? How does that fit into a modern podcast strategy? Great question, Poppy. Thank you so much for this. This is like amazing. I love this. Again, smartpassiveincome.com/Poppy, and you'll get that discount over on that website, POPPY. So what about community building? Well, of course, we at SPI favor community building very, very much. There is a lot of value in bringing human beings together around a central topic, because that's what we human beings are craving these days, especially in this world of an overload of information, especially in this world of AIification of everything and everything being commoditized in terms of info. It is the connections. It is the synapses between different brains working together on something and holding each other accountable and lifting each other up and being there when they need each other. When you bring your community together, that does nothing but heighten your brand and build more trust within it. And so highly recommend doing that. There are a lot of micro communities being built within certain spaces. You might have a niche and a niche and a niche. Great. It might only have 30 people in it, but guess what? Those are 30 people who will become lifelong friends, lifelong supporters, lifelong customers potentially of yours. Those are hosted in different places. I've seen everything from WhatsApp groups of communities to LinkedIn groups, so being hosted on these other platforms, Discord, to, of course, like the community we have on Circle. I actually was a guest on Joe Sanok's Practice Circle community recently. He helps people who have therapy practices and those kinds of things. He helps those people succeed. And I came on as a guest to talk about lean learning. He was kind enough to buy a number of books. And Joe, I know you listen to this podcast. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And it was a tight little group. We had like 19 people in there. They asked amazing questions. And I could tell there was even a lot of conversation where they were talking about each other and some person who didn't show up that day because something had happened, and everybody kind of like nodding their head and wishing them well. And it was like, wow, there's a bond here. There's a bond between these people who have practices, and Joe is the person who brought them together, which just oozes of what people are craving today. So if you have a podcast or thinking about starting one, you can start with a small group of people who are there talking about those episodes, who are bringing ideas to the table of who you should have on the show or topics that you can discuss. These things just add to helping people feel like they belong to something, which is inherently what we all want. having Q&As with them, allowing them to bring their questions to the show, maybe even using tools like SpeakPipe or Google Voice to capture audio and take those. Or maybe you run live Q&As in a Zoom meeting and you just capture some of that and bring it to the spotlight on a public episode. You recognize some of the people in your space. It helps people on the outside realize there's other people like them interacting with each other. Where are they? I want to find them. And then you drop that link in there, which is really cool. So the other thing that I'll finish with here when it comes to growth strategies and stuff that's working today, we've talked about the TikTokification, taking small snippets from your larger episodes, video, of course, putting them onto those social media platforms and sharing that, repurposing it across all those different platforms. Wonderful. Guest podcasting. Great. Using AI to help you with the not only creation of your stuff, but even the repurposing of your content as well and finding those hot moments. Email lists are still really hot in the world of podcasting. Emailing your list when a new podcast episode comes out, that has been a topic of discussion for years. And more people are doing that to make sure that those episodes that are valuable get in front of their people. And when you can share a bit more information about them, or even maybe when you share that episode link out to your email list, you share maybe some fun facts or a behind the scenes about that episode, maybe an image or a picture of the person that you interviewed or that you were a guest on. This works really well. In addition to that, and in a similar vein, share for shares. Being a guest on another person's podcast at the same time that they are a guest on yours, and doing a nice little collab that is planned, that is premeditated, where both audiences share each other's audiences on the same day, if possible, if not at least the same week. And this coordination goes a very long way for heightening both brands and kind of winning together and coordinating this ahead of time. Obviously, this means building a relationship with these people, these other podcasters ahead of time. You might already have these relationships with these other podcasts ahead of time. Great. Utilize them. Work on this thing together. The classic example I always give is the Entrepreneurial Summer Summit. Now, what is that? Back in 2012, might have been 2013, back when the Internet Business Mastery podcast was still around. That was the first podcast that I really fell in love with. That actually was a big reason why I am here today. Shout out to Jeremy and Jason. We coordinated with 2 other podcasts, so there's 4 in total, Internet Business Mastery, mine, and 2 others, to do 4 weeks, 1 month's worth during a summer, where we all are a guest on each other's show. And 1 week it was on Internet Business Mastery. The next week, everybody, again, the same 4 people, were on my show. And then we were on the other 2 shows after that. My show is the only one to still be around, though, unfortunately. I miss those guys. Rob was one of the other ones. I can't remember his last name, but he was also with us in San Diego. We played disc golf together. Man, those were the days. But that worked really well because we just shared each other's audiences, because everybody wanted to see and listen to their favorite person on each of these other shows. And that introduced every other podcast to all the other podcast audiences. And that worked really well. This is very similar to back in the day, what used to work like a blog carnival. Very few people are doing this kind of thing today. People like Chris Donnelly are doing this very well on LinkedIn, right? He has a little group, a little clique of people who all are working together to share each other's stuff, and they're all growing together. This needs to happen more, and I think it can happen more on podcasts. Now, with monetization, this is where I'll finish today because we hadn't touched this yet. Yes, there are some new tools available to help provide additional content to your podcast listeners for a payment. Something like a super subscription where a person would have to pay to get access to more stuff. Supercast is an amazing tool. I'm an advisor to that company that works with a lot of the biggest podcasts like Andrew Huberman to charge a little bit extra to listeners to get additional bonus content. Lots of money being made there, and that is a trend that we're seeing today. Community monetization. We just talked about community, but if it is a subscription model for something that's a little bit more high touch, or there's some experts that come in, for example, or maybe it's some previous guests who come on to be a little bit more interactive with the audience that you have, great. You could charge for that, and you can start to build some revenue that stacks on each other each month that way. Of course, using podcasts to drive other business revenue continues to be a thing. A lot of people are driving people to newsletters now. I mean, that was always the case, but even more so now, to get a quick win or some content upgrades, something in the episode that relates to the topic so that they can get into an email list and begin to be nurtured from there. Affiliate marketing still plays a role. Obviously, I've dropped in Poppy a number of times. Again, smartpassiveincome.com/Poppy. I believe you can save $25 if you go there and use a code, but you'll see the instructions when you land there. See, I just did affiliate marketing, and I told you I'm honest about it, but I'm also going to get paid additionally for people who use this tool and benefit from it, which is pretty much everybody who uses it because it's pretty amazing. So again, using podcasts as lead gen tools, as a part of a conversation, not just the start and finish of a conversation. So that is what is working today across the board in podcasting for podcasters. And hopefully this was even helpful for you if you didn't have a podcast. However, this might encourage you to start a podcast as well. Now, there's going to be some of you who listen to this and go, oh my gosh, now I need to create short form videos. Ask yourself the question again, if this were easy, what would it look like? If you just needed to get started with this, turn the camera on when you record, find one little snippet from that, just one, and put it out there in the world and see what happens. And do that once for every episode for the next month. Then maybe try to find 2 snippets. And once you get that system going, once you get your reps in, you're going to find that the editing process gets cut down by a lot. When I started my Shorts channel, I was taking 45 minutes to record a 60-second video with all the editing and the sound effects and all that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? It only takes me 12 minutes now. I can finish an entire week's worth of episodes in a little over an hour. But that didn't happen right away. That happened because I just kept going. So get that consistency going. That's really key. That's going to help you stand out from all the other podcasters that are out there that are hoping for a quick run. And it is those, again, who stick around who win. I've been at this for 17 years, people. That is crazy. 15 years. I can do math. So I say 17 because my business started in 2008. So I've been at business for 17 years. The podcast has been up for 15 years. Although, that being said, I did buy my mic 17 years ago and kept it. It started collecting dust before I finally had the courage to get up here. Anyway, I can't do math anymore. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you. Definitely check out Poppy, smartpassiveincome.com/Poppy. And I appreciate you for being here and keep up the good work. We'll have another What's Working episode next week, and we'll also have some fun interviews sprinkled in throughout some Fridays here this month as well. But keep up the good work. Thank you so much. And big shout out to all the SPI community members. Appreciate you so much. It's been so much fun to see you in office hours and all the workshops that we've been doing recently. And I look forward to seeing you in some of the next ones. So take care, everybody. Thanks. Peace. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? Record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips. Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART. Look, I get it. You want to grow your business, but trying to sell to hundreds or even thousands of people gets very exhausting very fast. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? Score App helps you sell to more people without adding more to your plate. You build a quiz or assessment that your audience actually wants to take. Then they answer a few quick questions and get a personalized result right away. It shows them where they're at and what they need to do next and how you can help. And you build huge amounts of trust before you make even a single offer. No hard sell, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. All you have to do is just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.